Our speaker tonight is not from Serbia, as you know, so I will announce him in English. Juan Carlos Carrera is a marketing and sales director with over 15 years of experience. He is born in Mexico, but he has lived and worked in many countries, and currently he's located in Poland. He is a sales director in Intel, and he will talk about leadership. JC. Hello.
Thanks for the introduction and the invitation from Nenad and Stanislava and Danilo. Really appreciate it. And I wanted to come here today to share a little bit about my story and how it is to actually lead through massive changes. Everybody goes through change in their lives and in their businesses. And it's always good to share so that when the next time and it's your turn to change, you have at least some points to view and to be able to use them in your advantage. So some of the things that I'll be touching is how to make sure that you're managing correctly and making those critical changes and when you need to do them. How to make sure that you have your organization, maybe you owners of companies or you're managing teams. So how do you make sure that everybody's following you when you make those changes? It's very important. Then the commitment levels. If you're going to have a big change, but there's no commitment from the different parties, then the change is going to be quite difficult. Finally, communication, we'll touch on that as well and how important it is. And sometimes we think that little communication is good enough. We'll see about that. Making sure that everybody is setting new expectations from the start. It's part of the communication as well. When you go into a big change, you need to be able to set what is going to be the new reality and that people understand that, okay? So the way that I structure this, because I don't want to do any death by PowerPoint, I'm gonna tell it more as my own personal story. So I put the chapters in there. I won't go into the detail, but we'll try to put it like that. And if you do have any questions as we go on, just please, raise your hand or, raise your voice, and happy to interact. At the end of the day, this is the whole point. Making sure that if you do have questions and I can help and I can answer, then just let's participate. Okay? So I think Stanislav already introduced me, but just a couple of points in there and one key point. Firstly, who is not an engineer here? Can you raise your hands? Okay, well that's good. That's good. I am actually an engineer, and then I transformed into the dark side of sales and marketing, like they say. Why? Because I figured out that with the good problem-solving skills, some good, interpersonal skills, applied as projects, as problem-solving, how to maximize things in the sales world, actually works. So, that's a bit my story, and I started from doing, very more hard engineering things, manufacturing or time measurement, etc. And I kept on moving into business development. And for the last several years, I've been managing sales and marketing in different countries. So right now it's in Poland, but before that I was managing France for the distribution channel. And just after that, before I moved to Poland, it became actually Western Europe, so Switzerland, Belgium, Luxembourg. There's not much there, and France. And as you can see, I'm happily married. I've got 2 lovely girls. One of them is going to be 8 soon, and 4. And I've been living and working in several countries. So if you do have the opportunity to actually even go in an exchange or work somewhere else, I highly encourage it, because that will definitely complement your view on things. It makes you a lot more richer. And for the last 3 years, on the story that I'm going to talk about is, how we went from 0 to a team of over 140 people, and what were the obstacles that we needed to jump through in order to get to that. And finally, if there are 3 words that I identify myself with, passion, tenacity, and determination. And I truly believe that if you really want something in your life, if you work hard enough for it, you can achieve it. So, all right. So firstly, just to make sure that everybody's woken up, and again, I'm originally from Mexico, so I'm just going to do a couple of questions here. Not all of them are from Mexico. They're going to go from the easy questions and to the more difficult questions, okay? So how many of you think that that pyramid is an Aztec pyramid or a Mayan pyramid? If you think it's an Aztec pyramid, raise your hands. Okay. If you think it's Mayan, and there are some people that didn't raise, so they probably don't think it's a pyramid, but it is. So, all right, it's an Aztec pyramid. All right. So in Mexico, actually, we've got the Aztecs and the Mayans as well. So the Mayans is this pyramid that's near Cancun. It's a nice place. But this one is in Mexico City. So this one is from the Aztecs. Okay. So let's warming up now. In order to get you a bit even more warmed up, got a little question here. So I guess I don't have to say that tequila is the national drink from Mexico, I hope. Okay. From which of these cities do you think that tequila is from? So, who thinks that it's from Mexico City? Raise your hands. No? Okay, 1. Good. From Ciudad Guzman? Anybody? From Tequila? And from San Juan? Who said it was from Tequila? You? Guys, actually, tequila is not far away from where I'm from. And yeah, I put this in there because I was having a chat, I think it was over the weekend, and a lot of people didn't know that there was a place that's actually called Tequila. So, but yeah, if you're ever in Mexico, you should go there. Now, following the tequila topic, this one, everybody always gets it wrong, okay? So, now, you've probably watched a lot of films and movies, maybe American movies, in which they have a worm inside a so-called tequila bottle. Okay? But anyway, I won't say anything more. But tequila is made out of one plant. So which plant do you think that it's made from? Mezcal? Anybody? Or, okay, 1? Agave. Okay, good. So you didn't know that it was from tequila, but you know that it's from agave, so that's good. And now that worm, right? That worm is the worm of the mezcal. So it's not tequila, okay? When you watch a film and the tequila with the worm, it's not tequila, okay? It's not. All right. And now there's going to be a very difficult question, okay? I hope that you can all get it right. That guy, where is he from? Is he from Mexico? From Serbia? Or from China? Is it good? From Serbia, yeah, it's very popular everywhere. I used to play a lot of basketball, and yeah, he was definitely one of the good guys to watch. And I was actually trying to find a picture where he had like this Band-Aid and everything a long time ago. It was good. But yeah, very good player. So okay, so you guys get it right. Okay? So we're a bit more warmed up, so we'll get into it. So what we're going to talk about now is a couple of topics, and I want you to try to think first with your mind now a bit more in the tequila and all that stuff more cleared out. What does it mean actually to try to do things differently? I mean, just the fact of saying, I want to do something different, it already creates something like, okay, well, what do you mean something different? And adding to that, how would you do something different in a place where change had never happened or never happened in that magnitude? Or also, where paradigms exist. Paradigms are let's say, certain belief that you cannot do things in a different way. So imagine that you have that. And also that there is also a legacy. So that means that the way that things have been done in the past are very strong, very, very strong. And in order for you to change that, it's going to be difficult. So I want you just to think about that, because that's actually what everybody goes through every single day. Now, in order to make any change successful, we need to feel comfortable being uncomfortable. So I'm pretty sure that perhaps you've heard about this phrase before, but it is very true. It is very true. Sometimes we're going to try new things, and it's not going to feel right because it's the first time that you do it. I'll give you an example. I mean, I tried to create a website for the first time in my life a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, I did not feel comfortable, but I had to get it up and running with some help from some friends. But this is something that everybody needs to adapt. It's something that you need to internalize. Sometimes when you try something new, it's normal that it's not going to feel right, and it's not going to feel normal. In order for it to be normal, you have to practice it several times. And it's until you do it several times that it becomes automatic, okay? So let's jump into the first chapter of the story. So this is the only slide that I'm going to put some data points. Hopefully they'll be interesting for you. But the key thing is just to give you the context of why a lot of these changes happened. Because the world is changing and the market as well. So, we're seeing today, and again from a sales perspective, that 70% of people that buy stuff, they've already researched everything on the web, and by the time that they buy, they're already almost done. So in the good old days, when there was no internet and probably, let's say, TV wasn't that big, people would just go to their normal retail store and they would talk to the retail person and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and that. The retail person would take them, look, buy this, we've got this promotion, and now it doesn't work like that. And I think that everybody here does this, right? I mean, what's like the biggest online retail shop here in Serbia? Is it like Amazon or something like that? No? What's it called? Sorry? Coupe. Coupe. Okay. Yes, okay. It sounds like in Polish a little bit. So, when you go there, you're researching. You already know what you want. You probably already went to the web. You investigated how much it costs. You probably already went to like 1,000 websites to see where you can save 1 cent. So you've done all the journey, right? And again, if we try to approach now customers at the end of that journey, when their entire decision is already made, it's too late. It's too late. Now, 92 of them are actually making decisions influenced by what they see online. Again, I don't need to explain this, right? But this is new stuff. More than half of business-to-business decisions today also gather their information online. Before they used to call their friends, they used to call their colleagues, maybe it still does, it still happens, but more than half, are doing the research by themselves. I don't have to talk much about that one, but who's in marketing here? Good. So, in the good old days, when companies want to do, let's say, new customer acquisition, you want more new customers, well, what would you do? You'd do, let's go out to the shopping center and give some flyers, let's do some promotions, let's attract new people into the shop. Now, that's good, it can work, but when you see that these powerhouses, all their new customers, they're doing everything 100% within their site and online. How do they do that? I don't know. But it's amazing. So again, it's transforming. Now, a lot of the stuff that's going on and that will continue to happen in terms of products and services are going to move into the cloud. So everybody, I guess, know what the cloud means, right? But all these products are going to be stored in some server somewhere. So again, it's moving all digital. The companies today, growth companies today, they're teenagers. So if you think about before the Facebook, Twitters, and all of these companies, you had very big established companies. Once these guys came along, the rate of growth that they've been having versus historical patterns is massive. I think I was looking at a statistic that for radio, I think, to reach 50 million people, it took I don't know how many decades. Then TV, to reach 50 million people, it took as well, I don't know how many years, obviously less. Then when the internet came, it took them, I don't know, several less years. When Facebook came, I think it took them 4 years or less to get to 50 million people. So again, it's accelerating. And all these companies, they're coming out from people like you guys everywhere, good ideas. With the internet, you can expand them, and suddenly they're just growing massively super fast. And finally, we're going to have a lot of connected devices. Everybody, okay. Who doesn't have a smartphone here? Oh, okay, good. You probably are making points there because you pay attention, so that's good. But the reality is that, again, everything is evolving. So what's at the end, okay, so what? What happens with all this stuff? Back in any IT company where you work for, what all this means is that, your past models of how you were addressing your customer base and your end customers, they need to change. You cannot continue having an approach, let's say, from the 19th century, early 20th century, and the 21st. It's just not going to work, or it might still work in some cases, but you're going to start to miss out very quickly. In order to make these changes happen, the first thing that happened in this story was, okay, there was a case study. It was presented. This is what we need to do. This is what's going on. And management bought into it. And for any significant change that you do, management support is very important. There have been, I've seen in history some changes in which management wasn't very supportive and they were still very successful. But the difference of what can make something extremely successful versus failing is that support. So anytime that you want to do something, either being within your company, you as a manager, etc., make sure that support is there. And that the support is real. It's not just lip service, but it's real, that it's sustained. You don't want your high management to understand, the ultimate level of detail. But, if he's bought into the idea, then that's going to be, good enough for what you want to do. So that one is absolutely critical. On any change, usually companies change because they either see something approaching very fast and they want to anticipate, or in other cases, they change because they have to. And when you have to change, sometimes it might be a bit too late. So usually most of these changes, you got to do them very fast. You got to move very quick. You got to be able to learn and adapt as you go. And this is where, there's this phrase you've probably heard that says, don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough, or something like that. But basically what this is trying to mean is that, if you're waiting for something to be absolutely perfect with no problems, probably you're going to launch something like, very, very late. And, as anything that you launch for a first time, you're probably going to have mistakes, you're going to have to rework, and you're just going to take a long time. So you have to feel comfortable with that. You have to feel comfortable going fast and adapting things as you go. Communication is absolutely key. I think that we all underestimate what this means. And I think that, for everybody that has, let's say, wives, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, let's say that the boyfriend has an idea or there's a situation and he told the girlfriend about that situation. But he told her only once and, in a very short, precise way. So for him, he probably thought that, hey, that's good enough. I've told, that's it, let her roll. But, that message probably wasn't clear. It wasn't consistent. And it probably raised even more doubts. So then maybe, for the girlfriend, it's like, complete nightmare. And, the point here is that we need to reinforce that. The communication doesn't just happen, I had a meeting with my team and we talked about this stuff, so it's good. They're all good. No, it doesn't work like that, because people are gonna, everybody perceives stuff with their own filters. We think that we are clear, but somebody perhaps is perceiving it completely differently. We need to make sure that we continue communicating. We over-communicate. Over-communicating is better than a gap in communication, because this is where everything breaks down. So, on this first part of the episode, my team was about to move from a pure, let's say, support team into owning an entire business. And it was a business in which it had been worked in a certain way through agencies, different people, et cetera, for years and years and years. And again, it was high-level commitment from the management. There was enough communication. The context was set. We needed to change, so off we go, and we need to do it fast. And we need to do it fast. It needs to be fast. So by the time that gets communicated, obviously we know what we need to do. But then you're moving it through to the potential groups, teams, agencies that are going to be impacted. And basically this is what happens, that the world is going to end. It's like, oh my God, no, but you can't do that. We're going to miss this, we're going to miss our targets and the customers and this, and oh my God, you can't even imagine. But this is the normal reaction that with any change, you're going to go through. And so what did we learn, from that? Firstly, that there is a big sense of ambiguity. Does everybody understand the term ambiguity? No? So ambiguity is when, let's say that you want to go from point A to B, but you don't, the road is not necessarily very clear on how you're going to get there, and you're like in the middle. You need to figure it out. And so what happens in the organization is that even, let's say from my team as well as from the teams from which all that businesses was transitioning, there was a lot of ambiguity. There was like, how is this going to work? And people are a bit afraid of change. It's normal. And what you will see is that people are usually supportive and engaged or not engaged. They can show they care or not, but when they really care is when they start internalizing what does this change mean to me? Because, as long as, if there's something happening outside and it doesn't impact you, well, you don't care, right? But the moment that it impacts you, okay, well, there you start caring. And so again, in order for you to be able to run with this, communication is very, very important. Setting the right expectations. But this is something that you will always see. It's a normal behavior within any change. And as any leader, you need to make sure that you're on top of that and you're understanding what is the ambiguity that's going on. So what did we do on that first episode? So as you've heard probably, perception is reality, right? So again, new group, taking in big responsibility, big revenue quota, changing a completely different business model, coverage model, engagement with customers. And the perception was, you can't do that. All your guys are new. They don't know the business. They're not there anymore. The group is junior still, doesn't have enough experience. So we needed to change that very quickly. And that is the role of the leader of that group. You need to make sure that you're out there and you are pushing the right messages across the organization and even across your customers on why this is a good thing and why you are ready. You need to be, confronting that. The more that you're out there, the more that people will perceive that, oh yeah, well, hey, he's, the group is, I see them visible. I'm seeing that they're providing, weekly, daily updates on how this transition is going. It seems like things are going okay. So that starts creating, okay, well, things are under control. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems. You will. But again, you're feeding back positive updates on what's going on. And with that, again, you're building awareness. You need to build credibility, and you need to build trust. Ultimately, for anything to work, you need these three things. And these three things go tied to the other. The more that you're able to communicate and to build these things, the more that people will, instead of being, let's say, not with you, they will start supporting you and helping your cause. So as a leader, in any organization, you need to make sure that you're on top of that. And that also down on the management chain, you put a clear expectations of what you want from your management chain. How each one of them is going to build awareness, grow credibility, and install trust with their stakeholders. When everybody starts doing that, then, it starts to become a snowball effect and change in a positive way. Managing stakeholders is very important. Again, in this story, you have high-level management support, unconditional support, so it's great. You've got good air cover. But there's a good layer of people that perhaps, they interact, but they're not very close to what you're trying to do. But they're influential people. And when these influential people, if they don't have the right level of information, they exchange with others that perhaps are decision makers, then, it can set you back a little bit. So you need to make sure that you're forcing yourself to go and exchange and talk with people that perhaps you haven't spoken with yet, but again, pass the message. It's not just influencing upwards, but you need to make sure that you're influencing across as well. The more that you do that, then, the easier it's going to get. You need to make sure that you identify what are the critical points. So in this story, it's like, hey, there's like thousands of customers, and how are we going to transition, and what's the plan, and we have this project in place here, and we have this, okay. So we need to make sure that we identify absolutely everything. We're hitting point by point by point by point, and just building again on that credibility. And again, you all know this rule, 80-20 rule. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the things that actually make sense. Because in any of these big transitions, there might be an endless amount of detail of things that you want to change, but you can't change everything. So you got to focus on those that actually make the difference. There's no point in focusing on, let's say, a quantity of 10 things if at the end there are 2 things that you didn't focus on, and because you didn't focus on that, you failed. So you need to feel comfortable of not being able to do things, but do the right things. And so guess what happened at the end of this story? The world didn't end. It didn't end. It continued. And why? Because again, there was a big effort, and we managed to make it happen. So then we go into the chapter 2, which is the bigger change. And this is another sort of scenario. So to put the context in place, so let's say this first change just happened, right? You had become a group that was owning business. Okay, you're finished with that. Things seem to be stable now, so you feel like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to be able to grow. And then suddenly, there's a new organization that needs to be built. Okay? And that new organization, by the way, it meant like different teams needed to come together as one. There's going to be new management in place at every single level. New people, but not enough seats. So if you've ever played on the, I don't know if in the weddings here they put this chair game. That's what it is. It was a chair game at the end of the day. And new ideas and new views. So why is this so important? Well, imagine that you've just worked through a massive change. You've worked with a significant amount of people. You've got them on board. You've made changes. And suddenly, okay, a completely new set of people that you've never spoken with before. They've got their own ideas of how things should be done. You know that there's going to be a completely new management team. You're probably going to have to reapply for your own job, which I did, happened. And yeah, so you have to deal with that. Now, your team that also went through the entire change, well, guess what? They're about to hear this, and they're going to start saying, oh my God, seriously? I mean, we just finished this, and now we have to jump into this one now? So yeah. So again, this is the sort of feeling that people got, like, oh my God, the world's going to end. You know, we were working with this manager and with these people and this, and now we're going to have something different. It's going to be so difficult. Everything's going to end. That's again. And by this point in time, once you have a change like the previous one, and now you're going into another one, there's another word that comes out that's called anxiety. Is that, everybody knows what anxiety is? Yeah. And we all have it. And it's basically, okay, it's more like fear of the unknown. And again, people are going to be wondering, what does it mean for me? And again, this one comes from all levels, right? And in these particular cases, well, even, management's going to change. Everything's going to change. So how is this going to look for me? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to lose my job? And down the chain is the same thing. So you have to be able to deal with that. So what did we do on that one? So the first thing was, we need to be very fast, and we need to make sure that we're building the bridges. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there was something that was already set, and we need to make sure that we rebuild it very quick instead of letting it flow through the cracks. So the time investment here from any leader as well as from their management team is going to be very high up front. Because now, again, imagine that you have tons of new stakeholders and people that might have a word to say. You need to go out there and influence them to make sure that things are going to continue and they're not going to break apart. And with that, you need to make sure that you're rebuilding perception and that you're very clear on the mission that you have, what you want to do. And along the lines, when these sorts of things happen, there will be many decisions that are probably not going to be very popular and that not everybody's going to like. And even within your internal team, you're going to have differences of opinion. But at some point, you need to be able to disagree and commit, and you need to be able to identify who wants to be part of the solution. Who wants to jump on the bus and solve the problem, and who doesn't. Because when you're in a management position and you're perceived that you're not aligned, everything breaks apart. You need to be 100% aligned. When somebody doesn't want to do it, you need to be able to have that discussion, and you need to be able to also make, changes in what you need to do there. And that takes me to the making changes decisively, right? So again, there's a new group, new organization, there is a merge, there was a group that was doing one thing, a group that was doing another thing. One group was organized in one way, the other group was organized in another way. Suddenly everything comes together. And so that, for your group, okay, so we have to reorganize as well. We have to adapt. So we need to adapt quick. You have to do it quick. We can't, just let it run. You need to do it quick, and you need to do it hard. If you are sometimes, again, like I said, waiting for all the elements to match and getting all the people 100% on board, down the chain, you're going to fail. You need to make sure that you make, concise decisions with your teams, and then you just go for it. You need to be decisive. And again, I won't touch on the communication. Throughout all this process, You need to be able to communicate to everybody, because everybody will be asking, what's going to happen to my job? Am I going to have to work on different things? Is my job secure? Who's going to be my new manager? You know, all these things, people, you know, they will have these questions because it impacts them personally. And what's worse, when there is a lack of communication, there is a thing that is called rumors that happen in the office, and these rumors, they're absolutely destructive. Because most of these rumors, you know, they might be half lies, half truths, not 100% accurate, taken completely out of context. But if somebody grabs them and there is not good communication, official communication, and then propagates it, well, what's going to happen with everybody? Oh, he said that, and people, you know, they will normally just stress out. But that's not the right information. So as leaders, again, you know, communication is key. More communication than less is better. You need to communicate constantly. And there will be obstacles. It's not going to be a walk in the park. And you might have obstacles not only, you know, externally, but internally. You might end up having people that just simply don't like the change, and they will look to sabotage what you're trying to do. And it's happened. It's happened to me several times, in which I won't go into the story right now, but basically, you know, people, they were very strong to their beliefs, and they decided to do something, and then that sets everything back for a long time. So you need to be able to cope with it, and you need to be able to understand that these things can happen. So you need to have a strong stomach. But again, you know, after all of this was said and done, what do you think happened? Smiley face. So the world did not end. The business did not go, you know, into chaos. But again, it's a lot of investment. It's a lot of time investment, a lot of effort that every single leader and in a management team is putting in that sometimes is not seeing. It's behind the scenes. And with this, you know, I'm going to jump into the bigger one. So I'm going to take this this sentence that I described earlier. Change when you can, not when you have to. Because when you have to, you're rushed. You've got your back against the wall. If you're already seeing a trend, it's better to change quickly. And yeah, so we're going to have another big change here. So let me set the context in this one. So in here, you know, if you thought that those other changes, they were big from an organizational perspective, so again, recap on the first change is from being a supporting group to suddenly becoming a very big group, fully accountable, ownership, everything. Then having, you know, organizations completely merge, transform, and you have to readapt and again make sure that what you've done is still there and growing. Well, that's nothing compared to what happened later. So in here we were really talking about one of the biggest transformations in history, at least from the way that things were done. And this one, you could say that, yeah, it was sort of like the end of the world, or at least of the world that we knew. So by the time that I remember I was receiving that information of, hey, you know, this is what's going on, and there's this big change coming, massive change. And you're like, oh my God. I think it even takes time for people to realize sometimes the magnitude of it. And the ask for our group was to make sure that we were ensuring the business, that we were, you know, transitioning everything correctly, and at the same time that we were growing. Because one of these transitions actually meant growth for my group. Growth for my group, sometimes funded from somewhere else. And now again, we need to build that internal trust and external trust, but Again, the other two stories, they were nothing versus this one. And here you can imagine having customer relationships that they've been talking to one person in a certain way and doing things the same way for the last decade. And suddenly, it all changes. And they're very important customers. So how are you going to build that trust so that business does not go away? And to put the cherry on top of the cake, as all of this was happening, we had a mandate. There was no strategy yet. We just said, this change needs to happen, make it happen. And at the same time, you have to say, oh my God, okay, so we need to make it happen, but at the same time, plan this stuff and put a strategy together as soon as we can. So again, so everybody was thinking, this is definitely going to be the end of the world. And after you have several changes like this in a consecutive way, you start wearing down. And that's how I felt. Like, oh my God. Like, it's like you just finish one, you go into another, and then you go into another completely. And you might say, hey, well, is this stress? Yeah, you bet. You bet it was quite stressful. But then, as a leader, you have to remember that, it's not just about you. It's about, everybody else, because you're the first person that's serving everybody else. So you need to make sure that you're bringing on your best, and that then you're able to support everybody. So these situations, you have the mix of these, three feelings that people are having, and it's not fun. In this case, again, biggest change in sales history, in which a model that was supported primarily by a particular sales force was going to completely change into another type of sales force. And ultimately what that meant was that one sales force was going to grow and the other one had to change or move into different areas. The way that customers have been serviced was going to completely change. The way that distributors were going to be serviced was going to completely change. So again, people come back to say, what does this mean for me? Am I still going to be able to do what I'm doing? How is it going to change? When will I know how it's going to change? So all these things are going through everybody's mind. And it's going through your mind as well. How is it going to impact you as well? But at the end, you have to make sure that, okay, you're applying the same thing. You're grabbing and you're looking at the top mission, and then you're able to roll it back down. And so, and here what we did, well, you need to take the lead. And taking the lead, sometimes it's not nice. In this particular situation, well, after months of, again, endless amount of things going on, suddenly this other thing happens. You're missing your holidays, or even if you go on holidays, well, you still have to work on your holidays. Because again, there's a lot at stake. And in here, you're going to have to deal with a lot of people that have been doing jobs, doing what they knew how to do for decades, and suddenly you're just telling them that it needs to change, and that they have to change, and that they don't have a choice. So you've got everybody completely against you. A lot of disbelief and obstacles that you have to fight with. And again, it's a moving platform. So you need to make sure that you're acting very fast. Communication is another key thing. Again, I'm going to touch. But the key learning on this one, aside from all the strategic piece of it and everything, is that you can't just do it alone. Some of them you can take the lead, but some of them you need to be able to have a support group. And that support group, if you don't have it, this is how you look. Trying to take a big task on yourself, it's going to be very complicated. But instead, I don't know if anybody knows that team. If you've got a good team, did they win? They won. So you win. This is the time of a true leadership moment in which you need to make sure that your team comes together. And I remember, as soon as this happened, it was at the moment that we could actually share. I remember, booking some meeting. We took probably over like 6 hours, I think. Locked in a room probably until late hours, in which locked room, no phones, no PCs, nothing. And I was sharing, okay, guys, so this is what's going on. This is how it's going to look now. So everything that we knew before, it's over. This is where we need to go. And firstly, your team appreciates that because you're open and you're honest and you're sharing and you're listening. But then after that is, okay, guys, so this is what's going on. Once it's internalized, now we need to work together and we need to figure this stuff out because we need to action it, and we need to action it quite quick. And it's at that point in time that you know that you have a strong team because everybody's 110% committed. And everybody, they're going to do everything they can in order to make it happen. And that's what happened. And the more that you're able to trust your team, the higher that you'll be able to go. So that's one of the key learnings that we took from there. And some last takeaways from that story. Again, it's all about how you approach your leadership and how you are going to try to keep everybody aligned with you. That there are many things that are going on, and not everybody's going to know them, but it's your responsibility to make sure that there's a consistent line of sight. There's clarity. There's a clear mission and vision of where you want to go, and that you're engaging proactively with everybody. With everybody. Always need to look forward. There's, no point in looking in the past. Looking back on what happened, okay, that's fine, but now we need to look forward and we need to do things completely different. And everybody's counting on you. I don't know, how many people here are people managers? So, what was the first rule? And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but somebody told me, when you become a manager, people are going to listen to you more. I'm like, wow, okay. But the truth is that they do. Because you're a manager, you already are in a certain position. And people will look at what you do, whether you like it or not. So you always have to be on top of your game here, because you want to make sure that you're putting out there the right things. You need to be able to adapt, be ready, do it again, communicate. And, most importantly, again, you need to have a very strong support network, because nobody is going to be able to do it alone. The strongest leaders, they're not necessarily the guys that know everything and that can do everything. But they're the ones that have a team that can do the different things. And they know how to use the strengths of everybody. So if you have a team, you have to make sure that you understand what are the strengths of your team. And if you don't, that's a good exercise to do. I would definitely recommend it. And finally, you got to be part of the solution. For anybody that doesn't want to be part of the solution, I don't know if there's room in the bus. Because you're dealing already with a lot of baggage. Everybody's putting a lot of effort and a lot of energy. And if you suddenly have somebody that is not engaged and is doing something different, again, it's going to set you back. So you need to make sure that all of your team is committed. And even behind closed doors, if somebody's not going to be committed to what they want to do, have that discussion, make some decisions. But don't go on with somebody that's going to be completely contrasting what you're trying to do. All right, so, and after this, and this one actually took a lot of time, so I will let you guess what happened, but this big change, it took several months, and difficult, in the sense that you move away from something and it impacts not just internally but your customers as well. But at the end of the day, you prove that it can be done. If you do the right things, if you've got the right support structure, you've got the right leadership attitude, and you're putting in the right energy, and the energy again, it starts from you, the leader, that's seeing that something is going to happen, and that's anticipating, and that's planning, and that's engaging, then things turn out correctly. So, before I look to finalize this discussion, just wanted to ask a question, a little poll. All these 3 changes that I mentioned, what do you think the time frame was for all these 3 things that happened? Who thinks that it was like more than 5 years? More than like 3 years? Okay, and less than 3 years? Yeah, 30 months. So in 30 months, we went from being a support group, 8 people, including myself. 30 months later, 130 people with a completely different set of responsibilities. So it wasn't a fun ride. It was a roller coaster. But at the end, once you manage to go through that, it's great. There's one little point, though, in here that I forgot to mention. It is a roller coaster. And who doesn't like roller coasters, by the way? There must be somebody that doesn't like roller coasters. Why don't you like roller coasters? People get sick here. They get sick. Probably not in that way, but they get sick. And you as a leader, you have to identify when these changes are starting to take a toll. Because they're gonna take a toll in your team's fatigue. And you need to be able to make sure that everybody's on their well-being. At the end of the day, this is only a job, right? So you need to make sure that you're aware of what's going on. All right. So that's what I had for today. And can just leave it open if you've got any questions. Okay.